It did work. You mentioned the McKinsey report, and you'll see that to some extent we've pinched the title of the McKinsey report, but Michael Barber's actually seen our report, so he's happy with us to pinch the title. But in a sense, our study really did leverage off McKinsey, because as you know, McKinsey actually looked at what made some of the highest performing systems in the world successful. I assume, are people aware of the basis on which they chose the systems? Fairly simple. You'd know from the PISA data that essentially what they do with the PISA is that they actually put systems into 4 quadrants, where what they're looking at is essentially achievement and equity. In other words, the spread of achievement, really. And essentially what they were looking at in terms of the highest performing systems was obviously the systems that are in the high achievement, high equity category, but they really started to focus on the systems there, which tend to be Finland, Korea, Canada, some of those that you'd be familiar with. We, by the way, sort of oscillate about here in Australia, with a fair bit of variation between states and territories. Victoria doesn't do too badly in some ways, and of course it will not surprise you that our overall results are very heavily influenced by things like the Northern Territory and the number of Indigenous kids who are doing appallingly. But essentially McKinsey looked at the high-performing systems and concluded that 3 things mattered most. First, getting the right people to become teachers, developing them into effective instructors, and ensuring that the system is able to deliver the best possible instruction for every child. Now, obviously, that's a snapshot. But they said that in turn depends on strong school leadership, and therefore, almost in a mirror image, actually no, mirror would be opposite, almost replicated, getting the right teachers to become principals, developing instructional leadership skills, and focusing each principal's time on instructional leadership rather than the sort of bureaucratic tasks that can often take up the time. Very kind of easy to say, rolls off the tongue, you know, and it's the sort of stuff that's kind of obvious. In December last year, there was an International Education Leaders Dialogue in Melbourne. It covers 8 jurisdictions. This will test me. Victoria is one. Victoria, New South Wales, South Australia, Singapore, Hong Kong, England, Ontario in Canada, and Wales. They've been meeting for 3 consecutive years. This was the 3rd of their International Leaders Dialogues. The interesting thing was their conclusion is that the agenda now is clear. The McKinsey stuff is clear. The moral purpose, sorry about hitting that, the moral purpose of raising the bar and narrowing the gap is clear to everyone. The fundamental issue now is implementation. It's all about implementation and making stuff happen. We don't need any more new stages or new phases. We need to make it happen. So, you know, when they say getting the best teachers in place, ensuring that they're properly supported and trained, and having the best possible instruction for every child underpinned by those leadership categories, don't think anyone disagrees. It's all about the implementation. What we've done with our study, I guess, is take the McKinsey stuff and move it to the level of the school. Because in the same way as some systems perform better than others with which they might reasonably be compared, so too do some schools. And what we particularly wanted to look at, commissioned by the Data and Evaluation Division, and they should be acknowledged for doing that, was what actually, to answer the question that was raised before really, made those 8 schools high performing compared with other schools. There's a well-documented link between socioeconomic characteristics and learning outcomes. People may or may not have seen John Hattie's research and his diagram, well-known diagram now.